Welcome back, guys, to Over Under. As always, it's me, Germani, as well as my main man, Matt Hannafan. Matt, how you doing? We're going to be talking about the NL Central today. Obviously, technically, the MLB season's already started with the Tokyo series happening about coming close to 12 hours ago. Obviously, it was Japan time. But Matt, how you doing? Did you get a chance to check out the game? Obviously, pretty early your time, but how do you feel about
Yeah,
talking about the NL Central today too?
I did not watch the game, so I think it started at like 2 a.m. my time, 3 a.m. I was very much asleep. Um, so I did not wake up early enough to watch it. Like, may it be one of those things where it's like if it was like one of my like if it was my favorite team or something like that, then yeah, maybe I'd wake up to like watch a little bit of it. Um, or if it was like a rivalry game or something like that, but other than that, it's just like, I'm alright. Like, I think it was last year, wasn't it Dodgers Padres? And,
Yes.
like, I remember waking up a little bit for that.
Okay.
But for Dodgers Cubs, I'm like, I think I could sit this one out."
Okay. All right. I'll ask for more of your opinions of the Cubs in a little bit here, but yeah, we'll get started. For those who missed the game, the Dodgers did win, I believe, 4-1. Um, but yeah, let's get it started with the NL Central. Let's talk about a team that's pretty interesting going into the year. We're talking about the St. Louis Cardinals. Obviously, their offseason was pretty much ruled over by the saga that was Nolan Arenado. He was eventually going to get traded, and now it looks like he's going to start the season with St. Louis. So right now they're slated, the over under for them is 77 and a half wins. The year before, obviously, they won 83 games. Obviously, it was kind of below expectations for Cardinals fans and against Cardinals as an organization. They have announced that they've been taking a step back and trying to shed money, not really acquire any big money contracts or anything like that. So, Matt, I'm going to hand the floor off to you. How do you feel about St. Louis and 77 and a half wins?
Um, I would probably lean just for, like, an over/under sake. I'm not very high on this team, although I do like some of the pieces, like Ivan Herrera stepped up, late last year, behind the dish. Wilson Contreras, I think, will be better just in general now that he's at a less he's at first base, and that's a far less taxing position than catcher, and he's not like way past his primary thing. I think he's toward the tail end of it, sure, but 32, 33 years old, it's not the worst thing in the world. Obviously, didn't they didn't bring back Paul Goldschmidt, who's now in New York. And so Wilson was able to make that transition over to being like a full-time first baseman. Um, they have some guys like Mason Wynn, who I know is like a young shortstop that came up in their system. Lars Nootbaar has been someone who has garnered hype over the last few years. Brendan Donovan, Alec Burleson, Jordan Walker, I feel like has been someone who's been like meaning to break out. I know he had a down year last year, but he was someone that I think, uh, from what I could recollect, was like pretty good in 2023 in like a 100-ish game sample. Um, but I think this team is also in position to they wanted to get off the Nolan Arenado contract. Let's just address the elephant in the room. They want to get off that. I know he has so much like deferred money. I can't remember the exact year that it's deferred through, but he has a lot of deferred money on the books. Obviously, he's been declining each of the last couple of seasons, and so a team would have to be willing to take on that bet of him, like, you know, bouncing back just a little bit. But I don't know if that's necessarily in the cards. I know, like early on in the offseason, they were talking about him like being like a first baseman. It's just like that's a weird move. Um, Especially since the fact like his one positive trait is his defense, at least at this stage of his career. Like he's been an all-worldly defensive third baseman for his entire career, and like I don't think moving him to first would be a good idea. Obviously, that's not the case anymore, but I think there was like a small discussion about it. Um, but like I think this team is like one of the worst teams in this division. I don't know, like we'll talk about like the Pirates and the Reds um here shortly, but I would lean under 77 and a half personally, and like the rotation Sonny Gray, I know, has had like a really bad spring. He was good last year, but age 35 season, how much juice does he have left in the tank? Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz, like it's nothing to like write home about. It's fine. Um, Steve Matz, I feel like, has been pitching in Major League Baseball for my entire life, and he's only only 33 years old. But like it's fine. Their rotation's old. They have a couple nice pieces in the bullpen, but overall, I think this team doesn't excite me really that much. I'm surprised they didn't move on from Mormal, who I think for like 2 years there's been rumors about like him being on the hot seat and him, them firing him or whatever the case is. Like it's been a bad 2 years objectively for them, at least relative to expectation. I think the expectations kind of uh it now that they're at 77 and a half wins, I think that's more appropriate than what they were previously expected to have. But uh yeah, I would lean under with this team. There's just not a whole lot of exciting pieces outside of, again, maybe like a Mason Wynn or a Lars Nootbaar or Ivan Herrera or something like that. Like other than that, it's just like I I I would be more excited to see this team depending on what they get back for Arenado than I am with Nolan Arenado in this current context.
Yeah, like you're absolutely right. I think the thing about the Cardinals, and I guess like growing up with baseball, and like we're used to the Cardinals being like one of those teams that were just consistently good over the course of the better part of a decade. Like obviously winning the World Series with guys like Pujols and Wainwright, and among others, of course. Yadier Molina, I can't forget about him. But obviously, it's like this new era, the new era that was pretty much headed up by Goldschmidt and Arenado, and that's pretty much over now. And they had opportunities and they were still a consistently good team, but now it's getting to the point where it's like you kind of need to like they're trying to have the changing of the guard move, but they just weren't able to move off of Arenado. And obviously Arenado wants has that no trade clause, and he wants to be able to compete and he wants to be able to be in a position to win. Obviously the closest he was to that was getting traded, well, almost getting traded to the Red Sox, excuse me. Obviously, the Red Sox went in a different direction, bringing in Bregman. And who's to say that Arenado doesn't get traded by the deadline? But at the same time, it's like some of the guys you mentioned, like Sonny Gray was good. He seems like he's obviously the ace for their rotation at the moment. And then Ryan Helsley was really good for them last year. Like I believe led the league in saves, if I'm not mistaken, or probably the National League. I would say I think he was one off of the 50 save mark, but yeah, like they have some pieces to be intrigued about. Obviously, Mason Wynn still coming up as a shortstop, cannon of an arm. Herrera is somebody that you brought up. Like I think that was the reason why they felt a little bit more comfortable moving Contreras off, and obviously with the departure of Goldschmidt. But it's more just trying to see what these young guys are gonna have to offer you. Like I'm waiting for Lars Nootbaar to really kind of have that true breakout season. It seems like he's someone that goes under the radar. Like he does things well, and that like he's a good ball player. But yeah, you're just waiting to see like inevitably when the Arenado deal is going to go through, and what you can kind of get out of the rest of these young guys is kind of like that passing of the torch and letting those guys be the future of Cardinals baseball. But yeah, like the pitching staff I'm not very confident in. And Ryan Helsley, like going back to him, he's going to be a free agent at the end of this year if I'm not mistaken. And that's somebody else you're going to have to look at and possibly probably either loop into the Arenado trade sweepstakes, or not even sweepstakes at this point, but an Arenado trade, or look to trade him as well at the deadline. So seven, like them being 77 and a half, I have them being an under because it looks like they're going to be one of those teams at the deadline probably shipping off a lot of their veteran pieces. I think probably someone outside of Contreras, unless like he has a suitor somewhere. But I could see a lot of their veteran players getting traded and then kind of embracing the rebuild for a little bit to kind of stock up on resources, and like I said again, just see where the young guys are at. So I have high hopes for someone like Mason Wynn, and then yeah, like outside of that, like let's see what they got. But yeah, I could easily say they're probably going to be the worst or one of the worst teams in the NL Central for sure. I have no problem saying that.
Well, you mentioned Arenado. Like, remember, he nearly got traded to Houston before he was like, "No, I actually don't want to go there."
It's very
Like,
true.
that they were very, at least obviously. I mean, now they Houston. I can't remember if this was before they traded Kyle Tucker or after, but they have Paredes and Morel now. So it's no, not Christopher Morel. They have Paredes and then Christian Walker.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so like it was already kind of a logjam anyway. So that would have been like, I know there were reports that talks resurfaced after that as the offseason went on. I don't know if because obviously in that case St. Louis really doesn't have any leverage. So uh, yeah, it's a weird thing with the Arenado and the no trade clause. Like he's only willing to go to reportedly a handful of teams, none of which, again, like we can all see that he's declining at this stage of his career, and so like maybe he outperforms expectation, for the first 80 games or so, and a team trades for him. Like I think that's probably the best case scenario for the Cardinals, even if that means they're uh like atop the division or whatever. Like I mean, this isn't like a very good division, so that actually not might be the case, but it's certainly on the table. Um, but yeah, I mean, I could see them trading like I don't know what their contract situations look like, but I could see them trading like a Sonny Gray or Fetty or a couple of these other like established veterans to a team for prospects. Uh, but like, yeah, I'm not. Again, this isn't a team that like I'm overly thrilled about. I don't see why many Cardinals fans would be either at this stage.
Yeah, just like my final point for Arenado, I think a team like Houston or a team like Boston would have suited him very well for his swing, and obviously and the reason I say that is because obviously the similarities with well, it's no longer Minute Maid Park. I forgot the new name of the Astros stadium, but Astros stadium and Fenway obviously have like a pretty generous left field wall um compared to the rest of the league, obviously the Green Monster and the Crawford boxes. And Arenado's swing would be very, very beneficial to having that kind of element in his home ballparks. But yeah, so like Arenado, regardless, I would say if he gives you anything like any sort of productivity with the bat, obviously, for his price tag, that's not ideal. But at this stage in his career, if he can give you even even some of his production that he was giving you, as long as he was better with the bat than he was last year, I guess I should say, because obviously he was like, he hit like 16 home runs, and I forget, not necessarily a handful of RBIs, but I don't think he even cracked the 70 RBI mark. But regardless, if he's productive with the bat and his defense hasn't fallen off the cliff, he still can be a very, very valuable piece to a team. But I think it's just for the right price is what the most important thing is. I think teams kind of understand that. I think it's just more the price tag of what it would mean to get him. At the same time, for teams that are going to be in the running for him, or I guess the teams that he's interested in, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But but yeah, like St. Louis, it's not looking good. So I guess we can just leave it at that. But but yeah, but moving on to a team that's a little bit more promising. Let's talk about the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Pittsburgh obviously have some established names already with O'Neill Cruz. Someone you're kind of still waiting for him to break out, I guess I should say, but he's been there a couple of years now. Brian Reynolds is obviously kind of the mainstay in that lineup, um, and obviously, of course, the big name on the Pirates' roster is Paul Skeens. And obviously, Paul Skeens spearheads a rotation that also includes Mitch Keller, as well as, oh my goodness, what's the other kid's name? I forget. Oh my God, not this again. But the other young pitcher that they have on the Pirates as well.
Jared Jones.
Yes, Jared Jones. And it's funny. I was trying to rationalize, Matt, why I'm not remembering a bunch of these names. It's just because baseball has been like, not necessarily on the back burner. I think it's just been like I'm trying to get the like active MLB season knowledge back in my brain. So like bear with me. But Jared Jones, Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens, and like the lineup looks a little bit promising. Obviously, the move for O'Neill Cruz going to center field should help him a lot, in my opinion. They're slated in at 77 and a half wins, just like St. Louis. They won 76 games last year, and so Matt, I'll take the lead on this one. Paul Skeens, I can go as far as saying Paul Skeens can probably, with a full season under his belt, be the NL Cy Young this year. I don't think that's a crazy take to say or crazy take to have. But also something I need to kind of put pressure on when it comes to Pittsburgh is that they are still in this mindset. I get it. They're not a massive market and they're not a big market team to lure big free agents, but if that's the case, you got to look at Pittsburgh and look at Paul Skeens and understand that unless you extend this guy for, the next 10, 12 years, some big crazy contract for him, you have like the clock is ticking for Pittsburgh to be remotely competitive with him as your best pitcher, because I think that's a good starting rotation in a postseason series, especially if Jones, if Keller, the other guys in that rotation start stepping up a little bit more, kind of, like it's because Pittsburgh, that's probably like the thing I'm most intrigued by is their pitching. But so like you don't want it to be the Paul Skeens show and then the talent discrepancy just falls off a cliff. I'm not saying these guys need to pitch to the equivalent. Obviously that would be a dream, but obviously that's not realistic. But just have a solid 1, 2, and 3, because sometimes even a solid first three pitches in a starting rotation can go a long way in a postseason series. But yeah, the other guys like Brian Reynolds, you know where you're gonna get from him. On the offense side, you're really intrigued by O'Neal Cruz. I think O'Neal Cruz could be poised for a breakout this year. I think obviously center field is gonna allow him to be a lot like kind of have a lot more freedom. Like the dude's a freak athlete. He's freakishly tall. This dude can move and run like a gazelle. Like he has all the tools to be great. I think it's just more of a matter of him putting it all together. Um, but yeah, like I like Pittsburgh, but again, like the clock is ticking. But I just don't think they're going to make a massive leap. I think Paul Skeens is going to be phenomenal. I think a lot of guys, like someone like O'Neal Cruz, like I mentioned already, is going to like have a fantastic season, or at least he's primed to do so. But I mean, 77.5 wins doesn't seem unreasonable either. So I can probably take a slight over on this, but I just not by a lot, because I still think they're a couple years away from being like truly competitive, and it's more of a matter of if they're going to actually try to invest even a little bit into this team. But I'll take a slight over on Pittsburgh because I do like some of the players that they got.
I can already give you a spoiler alert. They're not going to invest in their team. Um, Considering they barely allocate again like 75 million. Like it goes back to I know we did this last time, but like the Cleveland Guardians, for example, like they just don't, or like the Tampa Bay Rays, like they don't invest money into their team, and that's I think a bigger problem in baseball than we'd like to admit. Um, Paul Skeens is the only pitcher in Major League Baseball history dating back to the live ball era, which is over a century, to have a sub 2 ERA in at least 20 starts as a rookie. Like I don't think many people realize like he was really, 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 really good last year. Obviously, like a historically good year for a pitcher. Um, and so like that, obviously, it he's an ace. But like Jared Jones, I'm a huge fan of. I know he struggled. Like I want to say it was like with a lat injury last year, something like that. He missed part of the season, came back, wasn't as sharp as he was. Like he came up and was just striking every hitter out that he faced, and it was just like, whoa, like, do they have like another ace level pitcher in the rotation? And I know he slowed down a little bit, but he was still really good last year. And they also have Bubba Chandler, who's one of the best pitching prospects in baseball. I don't know if he's going to start the season on the opening day roster, but I think he's pretty close. At worst, I know they have like again Mitch Keller, Bailey Falter. Like they have a couple of guys, but I think he's going to take one of those spots at some point this season. Like I think he's going to play a factor potentially. Um, but no, they're not. Like Paul Skeens has to stay healthy for this team to, reach that benchmark of 77 wins or get close to it. Like Brian Reynolds has been like a model of consistency for his entire career. O'Neal Cruz is obviously, a very tantalizing electric player when he's on. Andrew McCutchen back, which is really cool. Joey Bart
The
was someone who he got traded to Pittsburgh, I think, last year,
Yeah,
and he like his bat like woke up. Like he struggled offensively when he was in San Francisco, but last year he I think was like north of 25% above league average in OPS, or at least around that mark. And so he was really good. Other than that, they don't have a whole lot of depth. Like Tommy Pham, fine. Uh,
they'll trade him
Brian
at the
Hayes,
deadline.
yeah, probably. Maybe if he gets in like another fantasy football argument or something, they'll trade him. Um, they have IKF, cool. Like there's not a whole lot. I mean, I think they brought Adam Frazier back. Um, they have a couple of other young guys like Andy Gonzalez. I know Spencer Horwitz was someone who they traded Luis Ortiz for. And I think is going to start the season on the IL. I think he's banged up, or at least he got hurt in spring. But he's someone with like you know left left-handed power that they could slot in at first base, and he's a solid young prospect that I think could develop into something. Um, they have obviously Henry Davis was someone who I think he's still like he was the number one overall pick a couple of years ago. He's in AAA. Um, I don't know how good of a spring he's had. I haven't necessarily tracked that, but I know he's someone who I think is also pretty close, uh, despite being Joey Bart having playing the same position. Um, but yeah, like they have some young pieces, but like it's just it sucks when an MLB organization like you just know isn't going to spend money no matter what, and that's the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Yeah, that's very true. And like obviously that's the harsh reality. I will ask you though, like, would someone like Paul Skeens kind of force their hand? I'm not saying to go and massively spend, but like, could you see Paul Skeens playing like, let's say in like how long is like service time? It's like 6 years. You have to have like 6 years of service time to be eligible for free agency, I believe. So, do you see Paul Skeens? Do you see the Pirates paying Paul Skeens when that day inevitably comes?
No,
Really?
they never do. They didn't with Garrett. Like when have they ever done that with
That
at least a pitcher?
right. But I at the same time, like obviously Garrett Cole, we obviously know what kind of pitcher he was and still is. Obviously, he's out injured, but would you say Garrett Cole and Paul Skeens had like generated the same kind of hype when well, I guess at this point in their careers?
I think Paul Skeens. I think Paul Skeens is more hyped than Garrett Cole, and I think rightfully so.
So I just like the thing I'm wrestling with because I guess it's at the same time for me. Um it's like in in a perfect world, you think it's a no brainer to make sure you have a guy like that locked up for the rest of his career. But obviously,
Right.
with like organizations like Cleveland, like Pittsburgh and whatnot, I guess like unless like you really force their hand, like with like the Guardians signing Ramirez, but again, it wasn't like he probably could have got like a ton more money or a far bigger contract if he truly went to free agency. But um, at the same time, like I don't know. I get like you would think the obvious answer would be yes, but like you can't put it like that would just be a bad move.
It
Um,
would be, but that's the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like again, I until they do actually, it's one of those things. It's like until they actually do it is when I would actually trust them to do it. That's I think kind of where my head's at because it's like I don't. They really haven't done anything for me to suggest that they would pay him once the time comes to pay him. They should 100%. They should do a whole lot more than that. But like the thing is, it's like they should be already doing a whole lot more than they have to build a team around Paul Skeens. And they just again haven't done that. Like, who was their big free? Like Adam Frazier? Like, was that their big free agents? That like other than bringing McCutcheon back,
that
like
was their
what?
big money signing right there.
Yeah, like but like like there's nothing else that they've really done that provides enough like tangible impact where it's just like, yep, this team's they're making a push. Like they're banking on internal development and they're hoping that is their solution. And obviously, again, you have Skeens, you have Jared Jones, you have Bubba Chandler who's coming up. But other than that, like, yeah, they did. They traded for Horowitz. They traded for or they didn't trade. They traded Luis Ortiz for Horowitz. They have Henry Davis, who again, as I mentioned before, is like he's been someone who has shown a little bit, but like again, like it just hasn't been. They haven't done enough, and their payroll, which is like 77 million or something like that, suggests that that will continue to remain the case until proven otherwise. Like again, they're banking on the internal development, hoping to hit a home run like they did with Paul Skeens. You can't
The,
do that. if you want to
I
win a
rem-
World Series. Like that's just you have to spend money. Like people owners don't realize this. Obviously, yeah, certain markets generate certain revenue, but like guess what? The better your team is that you build around, the more revenue you're going to make because people are going to be, paying to show up to your games. You're going to make the postseason. You're going to generate revenue in every single facet. Maybe the percentage of revenue that you generate is a little bit lower than some other markets like, New York or whatever. But like you have to be willing to spend money in this, especially when there's no salary cap. Like, what are we talking about? And now you have a generational player in Paul Skeens. Sick. O'Neal Cruz might be awesome. I mean, he is awesome, but like he might be even more awesome. Brian Reynolds has been like a legitimately good Major League Baseball outfielder for his career. What else do you got? Like outside of the players that we already mentioned. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's just like at it's difficult to rationalize as someone who I mean, yeah, I'm not a fan of the Pirates, but it's difficult to rationalize like them making some big push to pay Paul Skeens or rationalizing them making some big push in the postseason, barring something unforeseen with that division. Like it's just weird. Like it's not. I don't think it's something that like yeah we talk about them getting to the postseason. Like yeah, they're three. Their rotation with Skeens, Jones, and Keller would be good, but they got to get there and they have to be willing to 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 pay to get there, and that's just not the case.
I remember because the crazy thing about the Pittsburgh Pirates is that they are one of the MLB teams like outside of like the big markets or outside of like the teams that have been here for the longest of time, like the Red Sox and the Yankees. They're a team that is rich in history, and I remember many like just decades ago, many decades ago, that they have some legendary names come through that organization. Dave Parker, Roberto Clemente, Barry Bonds, like names, I'm pretty sure there's other greats that I'm forgetting about. Um, but even thinking back, like oh my god, what old top Willie Stargell. That's another name that was escaping me, but like, and a lot of those guys were homegrown, but it's just that's not the name of the game anymore. Like obviously, if and that's how it was back in the day. If you were big markets like the Yankees, for example, you would be able to bring in guys like Reggie Jackson, among others, to help your team and consistently be in the running for World Series and winning World Series. The Pirates got where they wanted to get to by homegrown talent, but obviously that's not the name of the game anymore. You have to, shell out big money to get the players that you want in order to be successful. Other teams like, like Oakland for a long time and Tampa Bay, like more so now, are teams that ball on a budget, but they still manage to still manage to be successful and make the postseason every once in a while. Um, and obviously that hasn't rooted itself into a World Series championship for any of these teams that follow this kind of philosophy, which should kind of tell you something. Um, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, Pittsburgh. It's like Pittsburgh has a lot of the tools it needs to attract the be not necessarily considered a big market, but be a bigger player than what they're trying to be right now. Because PNC Park is beautiful. Obviously, like I feel like there's a market for the Pirates to be like a team that many fans love. Like they have such a cult following, and I would think teams that have been like lesser off or worse off would have been moved out of town already. Like Pittsburgh and the Pirates, like they're rooted into each other, and I just think it's about either I would say, like, obviously the obvious choice would be, get someone into ownership that will have no problem shelling out money and kind of pull this franchise to where it needs to be. But until that happens, then they're just going to keep trying to rely on homegrown talent. It's like you're not going to have like the next Roberto Clemente walk through that door. You're not going to have another Willie Stargell walk through that door. Um, at least for like maybe a long time, unless you see what you have with somebody like O'Neal Cruz. But that's lofty expectations for somebody, I think, going into like his age 26, 27-year-old season, and maybe he's a little bit younger, if I'm being honest. Um, but yeah, like it's just if they want to kind of change their fortune, I think keeping someone like Paul Skeens around because he is on the fast track to being the best pitcher in baseball. But
he
is like
probably already
it
is the best pitcher in baseball, honestly. Like if we're
yeah,
being
yeah.
if we're keeping it a buck, like I know it's difficult for someone who's only done it for a year, but like he's probably again a historically great pitching season.
I
Like
I really I really hope he's not going to be the pitching version of Barry Bonds in this case. Like he's like absolutely fantastic, and like when free agency comes up, he's gone. Like he's uh, like undisputably the best pitch or the best player at his position, best pitcher in the game, and Pittsburgh lets him go, or Pittsburgh trades him away because they don't want to pay him, which is mind blowing to me. But
it
obviously Barry Bonds is a little bit of a different situation, but
right, but like you mentioned, like guys who like the homegrown talent, like it's difficult to place the expectation. It's like Paul Skeens is on track to be one of those guys, and like again, we're putting lofty expectations on a 23-year-old pitcher. 21. I don't care how old he is. Like he's incredible. Like
oh my
point blank,
god.
he's phenomenal. Regardless of how you feel about him or like Turek, Tarek Skubal or whomever, like he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. Like that's and
It's it's not crazy to say about even after a year. Like people
yeah,
are chomping at the bit to see what he can do for over the course of a full year because he got called up I think last year in May.
yeah,
Yeah, something like that, and like he was in talks about like, oh, like, he should get like Cy Young votes and rookie. Like obviously, had a great season, but I think it just comes down to just to kind of like put like a period on all this is that it comes down to like the Pirates have a really good thing brewing, and they like it seems like it seems like in the worst possible case scenario, worst possible scenario is that they're not going to be able to get out of their own way to kind of unlock the true potential of what this team could be in a couple of short years if like the right steps were put in place.
yeah.
But
So I don't even think I answered your question about the over under part of it. I would probably go,
probably
what was it, 77 and a half?
yeah, they won 76 games last year too.
I'll say a slight over. I don't feel good about it. I'll say
That gets
78. They win 78 games there.
yeah, I had it around there. Like I had 79. I think I was being a little bit over generous, but yeah, I think that's a lot of good would have to happen for them to hit that mark. But I think it's just more of the matter of like individual seasons from guys.
Yeah.
Um, but moving on, we're going to talk about another team on the rise, and it's the Cincinnati Reds. Obviously, Ellie De La Cruz, electric. He is like everything you want in a budding superstar. And then guys around him, obviously, they traded Jonathan India to bring in Brady Singer from the Royals. Um, they have they have good pieces offensively. I'm going to hand the floor to you, Matt, to talk about Cincinnati. I think a lot of people are like the hype trains started with Cincinnati, and I think it's pretty much like at the helm is Ellie De La Cruz. I'm not super high on this team, but I want to get your thoughts before I
I
kind of go in.
already, this is an easy over for me, and there's two words: Terry Francona. That's
I love
my
it.
rationalization. Oh my god, I can't even talk. That's my reason for why the Cincinnati Reds are going over their win total this season. Um, I would say to bring it back down to earth a little bit. I don't love this team either, at least from the pitching side of things outside of Hunter Green. And I think there's like Hunter Green, the regression I think will be not staunch, but like you just look at some of the underlying metrics and you're like, all right, this guy was like really good last year, but like he had like a 6% home run per fly ball rate in a fly ball park for half of his games, and it's just like that's not going to sustain itself. Um, and there were some other like underlying metrics that suggest that he's going to regress. I also just hope I know he's been awesome this spring. I've watched a couple of his starts. I want him to stay healthy for a full season too, or at least like because I know he's dealt with injuries over the past few years, like different arm injuries and whatnot. And so I'm hoping he's able to stay healthy, exceed 170, 180 innings. just because like with that kind of velocity, because like I know he for a while he was just a fastball slider, and then he integrated that splitter last year, and that actually helped him out a lot. And I don't know if I don't think he added another pitch in the offseason. I could be wrong, but like that's like a decent foundation. But I'm just hoping he's able to stay healthy because he's got such good stuff. Um, like that that I think is like something that's very important for them if he's able to stay healthy. Because if he isn't, like Brady Singer went from a a very pitcher friendly park in Kansas City to now perhaps the most hitter friendly park or one of the most hitter friendly parks in baseball. And it's just like he's been I want to say he's been a fly ball pitcher for most of his career. And he's induced a lot of loud contact, and it's just like I don't know how this is going to go if he's my number two. Lodolo, Martinez, Abbott, like okay, like again, nothing I'm like incredibly excited about. Their bullpen is something that's a little worrisome in the sense that like I don't think you can trust Alexis Diaz to be your closer anymore, and it doesn't feel like Francona has this spring either. And like you look at the options behind it, it's just like, all right, they got Taylor Rogers in the offseason. They traded for him. He was in San Francisco. Uh Emilio Pagan, like, okay, Scott Barlow, Santillan, there's just a lot of like it feels like it's going to be a closer by committee, and that's something that Terry Francona's been a manager forever. Like it's something I'm sure he's had to navigate before. And so I'm not incredibly worried about that. But at the same time, like I just look at the pitching staff, and it's just like a lot of it in my mind. Maybe I'm just off base with this. Is contingent on Hunter Green staying healthy, and that doesn't make me feel good as someone who's just like, "Yep, I'm betting the over." Like, you know what I mean? Like that doesn't make me feel great. I love Ellie De La Cruz. Matt McLean, I think he missed all of last season due to injury. He's back this year, and I think he's someone that can break out for a full season. They took a swing with Gavin Lux. They traded for him in the offseason. They got Jose Trevino from New York. Like they have some pieces, nothing crazy. Like Austin Hayes, Hammer Candelario. Like again, it's not a terrible lineup, but not something that's gonna like blow your socks off. But they certainly have pieces with De La Cruz, with McLean. Um, but I I would probably say an over, but like again, I don't feel like incredibly great about it. But I think Terry Francona just being in that building, like it's one of the few like managerial, like there's always one managerial change each year where it's just like, yeah, I think that's gonna bring a team from like the bottom of the barrel to toward the top of their division just based on that person's, you know, presence. Um, whether it's knowing how to manage a bullpen or whatever the case is. And so that's why I'm doing it. It's strictly Terry Francona. That's the only reason. I don't know if that's a good reason or a bad reason. But I'm taking the over for that simple reason.
It's funny that you brought up Tito. I think he like him as a manager, especially for Cleveland for a lot of those years, and obviously for the Red Sox before that. But I would say Cleveland in particular because he could get the most out of a lot of the guys in his locker room. Obviously, in Cleveland, he had some stars at the helm with Ramirez and Lindor, but outside of that, there was still like a stretch of years where he didn't have like it was just like the Jose Ramirez show with the band of misfits, and they were still managing to like win the division and go into the postseason every year. Um, so like that point, I really like that you brought that up. I think he's gonna get the most out of these guys. I think for the most part, like they play in a bandbox regardless. So I think like the offense is going to be very much apparent, especially with that ballpark. I think Ellie De La Cruz is going to be primed for like that true. Like he had a great season last year, but I think it's that true. Like he's here, he's arrived. Like one of the best players in the game. Like and that's like no doubt about it, kind of thing. It's um, like there's nothing short of amazing that I can't like no word I can use to describe Ellie De La Cruz. He's a marvel of the sport at the moment. It's like the dude's an
He's a
anomaly.
freak
Yeah,
in the best way possible.
yeah, absolute compliment to him. But yeah, like to the pitching staff, like Diaz, like he was somebody I had on my fantasy team a couple years ago, and like I guess like the one good season he had. believe it was in I think it was 22, and made an All Star team, and then he really kind of hasn't been the same since. Or I think it was 23, but regardless, it's I guess it's a testament to like the closing or being a closer being so volatile. It's like you have a great season one year and then be absolute just dog shit the next. Um, and so yeah, it's like it's got to be real interesting to see how they go about the bullpen situation. I think for them, um, like like I said, I like some guys over there like McLean, someone you brought up too. It's like, um, it's just I don't know. This is I like Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati's going to be fun, but fun doesn't equal great team. So that's what I'm gonna take a under on it, but I'll be very happy to be proven wrong, especially with anything involving Terry Francona. But regardless, I think outside of De La Cruz, I think Gavin Lux. That's somebody else I forgot to mention. I think Gavin Lux, a change of scenery for him. I think he's gonna have probably the best season of his career to this point. Especially being in a far hitter friendly ballpark and hopefully being able to play every day compared to um, LA, surrounded by just stars. Let him go out to Ohio in a bandbox of a ballpark and let him, play second base every day for you and see what happens. But so I have high hopes for Gavin Lux, and yeah, like Ellie De La Cruz is going to be a monster. Could hopefully be in MVP conversations this year, but if not, I still think that like Cincinnati is going to be a fun team to watch. I just doesn't necessarily mean I think they're going to be a good team, so I'm going to take the a slight under for them for sure. But with that being said, let's go to a couple of pretty much kind of like I would say it's a two-horse race between these two teams for this division, but let's talk about Milwaukee. Milwaukee obviously lost Willie Adames to San Francisco this past offseason. And obviously they still have players like Garrett Mitchell. They have Bryce Harang, who won the Platinum Glove at second base. You have Christian Yelich, obviously still out there in left field, DHing a little bit. And it's like, especially somebody like him, he's kind of been on kind of like a redemption the last couple of seasons. Missed the postseason due to injury for the Brewers last year, but they still on the pitching side still have Freddie Peralta. They traded Devin Williams to your Yankees, Matt. Um, and obviously there's a young kid out there in Milwaukee. For the life of me, I can't remember his name, but he is electric, and I believe pretty much who he was. He was labeled the Devin Williams replacement, and that's why they kind of felt comfortable moving off of Devin Williams. But I think that's kind of Milwaukee's thing. They lose big stars or they lose homegrown stars to other teams, whether it's a trade or just signing, and they manage to stick around and still remain competitive. When they lost Corbin Burns to the trading him to the Orioles, people thought the Brewers were going to take a step back, and they still managed to win 93 games last year and make the postseason. Now, winning in the postseason is a different story for them, but I'm going to hand the floor off to you, Matt, to talk about Milwaukee. But I would say I still like what Milwaukee has going for them over there, and I think it's kind of their division to lose until they do whenever whether that happens or not.
What's their over under? Did you mention it?
Their over under, keep in mind they won 93 games last year. Their over under is 83 and a half.
I wasn't high on this team heading into last year, especially right after they traded Corbin Burns, like before the season, and it was just like, and then they, I think outperformed expectation. With William Contreras being one of the best catchers in baseball. Uh, with Jackson Churio, like I know he started out slow, but he figured it out as the season went along. Like obviously there was a lot of whole lot of Joey Ortiz and Bryce Terang buzz uh during the season. Like there, I would probably, I think I'm gonna give them a slight under.
Okay.
And I think part of my rationale is I've already given what two overs.
Yeah, I believe Cincinnati, but you gave a slight over to Pittsburgh.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of like the math here because it's like all of these teams can't go over. Um, like that's not how this stuff works. I had to write down which teams I've taken over or under just for the math sake of things. Maybe I'm doing it off of vibes, man. That's what I'm doing this off of.
Everybody's gonna win more than they lose.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna 162-0, except the Cubs because they already lost while we're recording this. Um, but I would probably give them just a slight under. I like Freddie Peralta. Nestor Cortez, like, I know he gets a lot of shit for game 1, but, like, his story just being in baseball is kinda cool, and kind of, like, just the style of which he pitches, like, yeah, he's not gonna be a high velocity guy, but he's crafty with what he does, and so I think, like, that was fun for a couple of years. I know he outperformed expectation, um, a couple of different times and then performed below expectation other times, or maybe that was the expectation for some people, I don't know. But he's like, as your number 2 or number 3, I'm just like, that's not I don't think that bodes well. Savali, Quintana, who I think they just signed, Tyler Alg like, it's just eh. Um, they've been like a team that's, like, developed pitching though, like, over time, I think, and so, like, maybe there's still something there with that in the back of the bullpen even after trading Devin Williams. Um, but even then, it's just like, I hope Christian Yelich is able to stay healthy. I know he's, had dealt with plenty of injury. He's been good, I think, the last year or two, like when he's been on the field. William Contreras. William Contreras is awesome. Jackson Churio is awesome. Reese Hoskins, I know, like he had that moment with like New York at the beginning of the season, the first series against the Mets, but I don't know if he did a whole lot else after that. Maybe he did. Maybe I'm just misremembering. Terang, he's got no pop, but he's so good defensively. um, Joey Ortiz, like this team's okay. Like nothing again, like they feel like the perfect NL Central team. Just because I think this team is like mid as shit. But to put it bluntly, Pat Murphy did a great job last year, his first season as manager. And so like maybe I'm not factoring in the managerial bump. Not that there is a managerial bump for certain teams. But I think he helped because I know he has like a track record of success. I think he won NL Manager of the Year if I can remember correctly. Like he was really good last year. Um, I'll say they win 83 games. Like it's a slight under. I don't feel again like you could tell me that they finish with 85, 86 plus wins, or they finish with 83 or lower, and I'd be like, all right, I understand that. I know that's like a cop out answer, but I'll say yeah. I'll give it a slight under.
Okay. I'm going to bring up Reese Hoskins' stats. Counting stats, he pretty much still he put up 26 homers, 82 RBIs. But on the analytical side, career worst OPS plus, career worst, I believe in like hold on, let me see. Career worst in slugging percentage,
Who are you
OPS.
talking about?
Hoskins.
Hoskins. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so pretty much it's like counting stats, he still put up like what he usually puts up. It's just he was less productive, I guess, with the bat overall outside of his counting stats. But yeah, like I think talking about Shurio, I think Shurio is kind of taking that step forward. Hopefully near the end of last season was kind of the kind of like a sign for kind of the rest of his career for Milwaukee. But hopefully he kind of starts turning into that franchise player that they've been looking for. And the reliever I was talking about, obviously, as of right now, from when I was looking, Trevor McGill is going to be the closer for the Brewers to start off the year. But I'm hoping, and I'm not sure how he's been playing in spring, but Abner Uribe, I believe he was the one that was labeled the Devin Williams replacement. Um, like really young kid. If this is the same guy I'm talking about, but really young kid throws absolute gas, and yeah, like this is kind of like what the Brewers do. Like they lose out on stars or they lose their stars, and then they grow new ones. It's kind of like it's the never ending cycle for Milwaukee for these last few years. Obviously, like Yelich is a different story because like they brought him in via trade, unlike someone like Ryan Braun years ago when like he was literally coming up through the pipeline and all that stuff. But now you have some young pieces to work towards the future. In Churio, in Terang, in like others. William Contreras, fantastic, probably the best catcher in baseball behind the dish. Um, but yeah, like in terms of an over under, I'm gonna take over. I don't think they're a 90 win team, or who knows? Because again, it's you like you you look at the Brewers as kind of like underrated, even though like they've been consistently good, like with the talent that they've lost over the last couple of years. Um, so it's gonna be like obviously the pressure is gonna be on for the guys who are there to be more established and obviously like take that momentum forward because like I said before we even started talking about Milwaukee, it's kind of their division to lose. Obviously, there's still one more team we got to talk about, and it's a real interesting dynamic there. Um, but yeah, like until like I do think Milwaukee could take a run with this division at the end of the year, I should say, could take the crown. But again, like I think overall, like they're a good regular season team for sure. And I like a lot of the pieces that they have, even though they may not be, the biggest names or the flashiest, but I still think that Milwaukee has a good chance as any other year to kind of, be the Kings in the NL Central for sure. But yeah, just ending on that point, let's talk about the Chicago Cubs, who I think probably had the most eventful of off seasons out of any team in the NL Central. Of course, the big moving off of Isaac Paredes to bring in former Houston Astros star Kyle Tucker to play in the outfield for him. Obviously, playing against the Dodgers this morning, the Cubs have names. They have Dansby Swanson. They have Seiya Suzuki out there in right field. They have Pete Crow Armstrong, who's going to be their everyday center fielder this year. On the pitching side, obviously they have guys like Justin Steele, among others. I'm pretty sure there's plenty of guys that I'm missing, but the Cubs are starting to build up a roster with with names, and especially until they re-sign Kyle Tucker, which is probably like the one scary red flag for them until it actually happens. I like Chicago, and I think I want to ask you. I want to talk to you about Chicago. So I'm gonna hand it over to you, Matt. How do you feel about the Cubs? I'm assuming with them taking you taking the under for or I don't know. Did you take the under or the over? Now I don't remember on Milwaukee.
Slide under.
Slight under. So I'm assuming it's just speculating that you have the Cubs winning the NL Central.
I do. I do.
Okay. Why don't you talk about that?
Um, I think Kyle Tucker is not a substantial, but like a legitimate upgrade over Cody Bellinger. Um, he'll be in right field. As you mentioned, Pete Crow Armstrong is going to be their everyday center fielder. Seiya Suzuki, they're moving him out of right field into DH. Like again, I think that's a win in of itself. Um, I know Seiya. I'm a big fan of Seiya's bat, but I know he's had plenty of questions, defensively. Um, Dansby Swanson, they have a prospect in Matt Shaw, who's like a top 15 prospect in baseball, who I think is going to be pretty good. Ian Happ, someone at the top of that lineup that I think like just a solid player. Michael Bush, I know like he was like a touted guy last year, and I know he got off to like a super hot start. I can't remember if he ended the season super well or not, but um, 119 weighted runs created plus 775 OPS, like a solid player that you would want in the middle of your lineup. Shota Imanaga was outstanding last year. Justin Steele, like they have like solid pitching. Ryan Presley at the back of that bullpen, like I know he didn't have a great year in Houston last year, but he's someone who I think like you will pitch well. Um, Nate Pearson, like they have some guys, but I'm more so confident in like the lineup, especially at the top of the lineup. I know again, it's Wrigley Field's always a tough place to hit in because of the wind, it being in Chicago, this that sort of thing. But I think this will be a good enough lineup to where like I think this team's good enough right now to where I think they'll win the NL Central. I know again they started out with an L. They're at the bottom of the division. People aren't talking about it enough right now, but I think they're going to make the the improbable comeback to win the NL Central after They currently have a 0.000 winning percentage on the season. But no, I like this team. I think this team will I think they're in line to win the division this year.
I think with the addition of Kyle Tucker, I think that Kyle Tucker is kind of like the piece, like what they gave up in Cody Bellinger to New York. You get back, I'd say tenfold in terms of offense. Obviously, I believe I would take Cody Bellinger's defense more than Kyle Tucker, but more so you're bringing Kyle Tucker in for his bat, and he's a serviceable outfielder. He's not a dude with stone hands. So Kyle Tucker, he's the star to kind of carry this Cubs team into the future. Obviously, if he is signed long term, which I'm assuming is the plan, at least from the Cubs side. But but yeah, like I like a lot of the names that the Cubs do have. I think to your point, say a Suzuki. It was funny actually watching highlights of the game from this morning. I believe he had 4 at bats and he broke his bat 3 times out of 4 ABs. And obviously, it's more, I guess, is a testament to to the Dodgers pitching staff. But I think Seiya Suzuki is going to be primed for a very productive season, especially if he's solely focusing on hitting. I think someone like him, like you wanted to bring him in to pretty much for his bat because like just the potential he had for his bat, and he's had a really he's had a solid career to this point. Um, but yeah, I think there's too many like I'm really curious about PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, because fantastic already in center field, fantastic defensively. So I'm gonna be interested to see. And the dude's look, he's an athlete. Dude can like he's freakishly fast, and I think the idea like it's having someone if he can figure out the offensive side of it all and really start growing into that part of his game, he's going to be a very, very dangerous player, especially at the top of the order. But yeah, like I like a lot of the stuff that the Cubs are doing. Um, like I can see them winning the division, but to look at them as legit contenders just yet, I'm not sold on that idea. Um, Even talking about like kind of like their bullpen, like Ryan Presley, I think for him now, like very, very, very good reliever over the course of his career, especially in his career in Houston. Um, I'm wondering if last year was kind of was telling. I wonder if it was either him being moved off the closer role for obviously the Astro signing Josh Hader last year kind of got to him in terms of his ability, and maybe going into a place like Chicago to be like the closer at least to go into the season. I wonder if that's going to allow him to get back to being a dominant closer like he was um, a couple years ago. But yeah, like I would say for the Cubs, I could see them winning the division, but I think I can't be sold on that idea just yet until I actually kind of see it happen. Um, but yeah, they're labeled at 85.5 wins. I could see them. I could see them being over 85.5 wins because in the idea that they do overtake the Brewers. Obviously, I had the Brewers at over as well, but I could see Chicago, like the Brewers and the Cubs being kind of neck and neck for that division. Like I said, I feel like it's a two-horse race there, but so it's an easy over for me. I think they're going to be a team flirting with like 90 or even 90 plus wins. Who knows?
Yeah, I see them more so in like the 87 ish range, but yeah, I'm okay with taking that over there. No problem.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Well, that's been the NL Central. Um, yeah. So, guys, if you did enjoy us talking about the NL Central, leave a like, subscribe, and put your thoughts down in the comments. If any team in the NL Central is your favorite team, let us know how you feel about us kind of giving our thoughts and opinions about your favorite team. Let us know that we don't deserve happiness because we're talking down about the Pittsburgh Pirates. I don't know anything that crosses your mind. We'd love to hear from you. We're growing something here at Vendetta Media, so we'd love for you guys to be a part of it. Subscribe down below. Check us out on vendettasportsmedia.com to stay up to date with all your favorite sports and where you can find Matt and his blogs. A lot of great stuff goes into that website, so we'd love for you guys to go and check it out. But with all that being said, that's been Matt Hanifan. I've been Germani, and we'll see you guys next time talking about the American League and National League West.